boggles my mind, right? The federal standard is 15 parts per billion. That number is arbitrary. The CDC has already determined that there is no safe level of lead. So you're like, okay, but where does this 15 number come from? And why is it the law of the land? And you find out that, okay, it's been lobbying efforts that made this law take effect. But when you're looking at the health side, you're like, okay, but this doesn't matter. This number is, you just pulled it out of the sky. But one interesting where it plays out directly is in the last injunction that the NRDC filed. We were in court, or they were in court, and I remember the scientists saying, hey, the Ironbound District of Newark, the East Ward of Newark, is at a 15.4. But in order to qualify for an exceedance, you need to be at a 15.6. 0.2 difference. Now, obviously it's things that you can prove in court and these numbers, but you're like, that 0.2 doesn't matter. Especially when all of Newark is at a 33 parts per billion. So it's, and you all are in this business, so it's what you can prove, but it's like, does that make it right? Is that fair? You have a whole population, I want to say it's between 12 to 16,000 homes that are affected by a 0.2 difference, but in their minds, they're safe. Because, the law is 15.6 parts per billion. And the flip side of that is also the enforcement of it. So for 2 years before, the EPA came in and said Newark had to distribute bottled water, we were in a lead exceedance, but nobody was notified. Nobody was told about this. So yes, we were violating the law, and the law states, you have to notify the residents, I forget what's the amount of time, but nobody knew. So then what happens in that case? So, part of the work that we do is we try to work with legislators and say, hey, different things need to be enforced, or maybe these rules need to be changed because we need to prevent this. So oftentimes I feel like, our laws don't necessarily, they don't justify the times we're in, and maybe they play catch up a lot of the times, but we need to figure this out. And one of the things that, I try to work with a lot of people on is like, how do we stop this from going further, right? How do we make our laws stronger? One of the things that we've advocated for is lowering the exceedance amount to 5 parts per billion. And I remember sitting in a room with an assemblyman, and he goes, well, if you do that, then everybody's gonna have a problem. And I'm like, well, you don't know if you have a problem if you don't know. And that's the real heart of the matter. And how do we prevent other people from, as you say, getting lead poisoning or being lead affected? Because that correlation is super real. So we have these laws on the books that you think are here to protect us, but they don't. So how do we work around that? How do we, and for me, it's education, right? It's understanding these things. Like, I had no idea about all of this until I started doing my research, and that's one of the things I advocate. It's like, even if you don't believe me, if you don't believe what the group is advocating for, do the research yourself. And you'll understand how all of this is interconnected and how all of this plays a big part in a lot of different